Welcome to the latest episode of Too Late with Dave. I'm Dave Brolan, and I'm with Andy Earl, photographer. There's lots of things we could describe you as, but let's stick with photographer.
Stick with photographer, yeah. It's a good start.
So let's start at the beginning. So you mentioned that you got your first job kind of by accident at a gallery.
Yes, basically my external assessor was a lady called Sue Davies who ran the Photographers Gallery in London, and she quite liked my pictures that I did at art school, and would I put them into a show, a European colour photography, and Malcolm McLaren and Vivienne Westwood came in and saw the pictures and said, oh, would you do an album cover? So that's how I started. I did an album cover for Bow Wow Wow. And then the next one was a call from EMI saying, quite like what you've done with them, do you want to do a bunch of lads from Birmingham? And it was Duran Duran, so that was my second shoot.
Ah. And what year are we talking now, roughly?
81,
right.
81, 82.
And can you remember what the picture was that you had on display?
In the gallery? Yeah, it was women at Ascot. Okay. I'd taken a whole load of pictures. I was using a camera with flash. I had 3 flashes on it, and it was shooting in colour, which again, back in those days, everything was black and white, and colour was seen as too commercial. So shooting everything in colour, and so they were quite. And I messed up the exposure, and I hadn't put the speed right on the film, and suddenly everything came. The flash went off, and then everything went blurry. And I thought, well, this looks quite good. So I ended up doing more of that. And even when I finished, the guys at the tutors turned around and said, well, to be honest, they would have been better in black and white. But no, they were good in colour too. And anyway, McLaren saw it, and I think he knew Brian Clark, who's an artist that I work with, and Brian said, go and have a look at Andy's stuff. And his girlfriend was Vivienne Westwood, and then the first session we did was Déjeuner Célèbre.
Perfect. And so this sort of happy accident you found with the flashes, and then you developed that, and then did that become kind of like a signature?
Completely. I mean, it was unless I went outside with the flash, I didn't really know what I was doing, and I kind of like to sort of overcook things a little bit, but also it added drama straight away. And I mean, initially I used it because in Nottingham, it was always a bit grey, so colour looked a bit dull. So put a flash on to try and pump the colours up a bit. And then when it came to doing, like with the Duran stuff, you'll see that was again using a sort of flash and blur technique.
Yeah, and so this picture of Duran Duran was their first photo shoot.
This was the first photo shoot, and it was Milton Keynes, and that's a sewage works at Milton Keynes, and it was Milton Keynes was just opening at the time, and we ended up doing a shoot in my studio up in Nottingham, and a funny little attic studio just by the station, and then went down and photographed them down in Milton Keynes and did a whole series there.
So with this, had you scouted the location? What was the brief?
Well, I wanted, I think at the time, because they were all new romantics, it was all electronic, it was all about modernity, and I loved modern architecture, and I'd seen these glass boxes driving up and down the M1. I thought, oh, they'd be good, not knowing that it was a sewage works. So I ended up shooting them there, and we also shot them in the shopping centre before it actually opened, when there was palm trees and stuff like that. So it looked super exotic for 1980s, and sort of fulfilled the sort of new romantic thing and their kind of electronic-y vibe with their music.
And you said there's a plaque there now.
There is, in outside of, I have yet to see it, but outside Milton Keynes Shopping Centre is a blue plaque saying Duran Duran's photographs first done here. And
you went on to work with them for quite some time.
Yeah, I did. I worked with them. We went out to Sri Lanka and did all their worked on the videos and stuff, and then continued to do odd jobs for them over the years. But I get on with them really well. It's quite nice to. I don't see them that much, but when I did see them, one of them said, "Oh, I remember you. We were standing on that blooming rooftop, and you were going 1 chimpanzee, 2. You had to stand still for 30 seconds, and things sort of thing." But so that was fun.
And then we're going to hear. So this was their first.
This was their first session, yeah.
But also with them, it's your first time on a record.
It is, yeah.
And I think we can hear a little bit of that.
There you go.
That was my
motor drive, yeah.
Now, had that been planned, or you were just
No, I think they needed to use one, and the manager said they used his, but I don't know anyway. They used a motor drive in order to start the record, and I mean, you know, being a photographer and having a camera like that, probably that's where it comes from. And then this next shot is of Duran of Simon. This is the flash and blur vibe, and I think what's basically how I've done this was that when I shot it. It was the album was called Rio. This was their second album, and I wanted to try and make it look like Rio, but we were in London, and that's actually the NatWest Tower, which is one of the smallest buildings in the city now, and all around was all the other lights. But I kind of like the sort of the you know, the Los Angeles look in a way, and with that, what I did was shot him, then told him to stand still for 30 seconds or for 30 chimpanzees, and he's then exposed, but he doesn't get blurred by the background. And then at the end of the exposure, I kicked the tripod to give it that blur, so it looked electronic. And I wanted to try and get that, you know, so not just the motor drive, but their music has that sort of. You know.
So with this, though, there's a lot of trial and error because you don't know that he's going to come out sharp.
I kind of did. We tried it a few times. So and I knew roughly what I was doing, and I knew that if he was in front of all the lights and he moved, he'd get blurs all over his face. And then we did it with the band afterwards as well. Didn't one for a group shot, but this is the one I think which worked really, really well.
And is your camera credited on that track?
No.
Have you been on any other records?
No, but with Duran, I was in Hungry Like the Wolf. We were out in Sri Lanka and they were filming, and one of the extras, who was a nun, because he was doing like Raiders of the Lost Ark type thing, and sitting at a table, she got food poisoning, and they said, "Oh God, we need another one." I said, "Well, I'll be that." So I'm the other nun in Hungry Like the Wolf. 40 seconds. I look rather good, I think, as a nun as well.
Yeah, I think we'll move on to your next picture here. So this is arguably one of your most famous pictures, also one of the most famous pictures of Johnny Cash, but kind of happened by accident, like well planned, but also accidental.
Yes, I mean, I think when we got the call from it was Rick Rubin's lot, and Martin Atkins was the designer of it, and Martin and I had worked together on other projects and out in America and things, and he said, "Oh, we've got a call to do Johnny Cash," and I thought, well, I really thought his sort of career had gone very quiet and everything, and they said, "And you're going to have to go to Australia because he's out in with the Carter family and they're touring." So we flew to Australia, and then tried to find somewhere that the brief was to have him like man on the road with his guitar case, quite iconic feeling. That was the sort of general talk, and we were in the contact sheet. The next thing you can see, we were sort of trying to set up the picture from here. So from the top, it was a bit windy, and he was standing there, and then there's the one with the guitar where he looks quite good. But what was quite interesting was these two dogs that were running, literally belonged to the station master, and were running about, and he was quite sort of taken with them and calling them over. And then, as you can see in the middle ones, the dogs aren't quite there, and then these two frames here, it all comes together. So the dogs are there, he looks like a preacher man, there's a field of wheat, it had a whole kind of big vibe to it. And if you go back to the original one, it sort of shows the, you know, how it then came out. It just had a sort of, for me, it was one of the pictures where the first idea wasn't working. It did work. They used it for a stamp, but it wasn't as I think as sort of all encompassing as this. For me, photography is all about the picture. So it's not just the person. It's about, you know, the stormy clouds, the wheat, the feel of everything that's going. And I think the more one can play with that and play with the picture, to me, the becomes a bit difficult. But I don't. The artist becomes the last element to go in. I want to make them look good and all that, but it's about getting that picture that tells the story, that tells what they're about and things. And with Johnny, I think that one worked quite well. And I mean, he said, "Look, I've never been photographed sort of either, you know, on stage or at my house and stuff, or the back of a hotel and things." So we dragged him 30 miles out to this old road and stuff and did the pictures. And then when he was on later with Jules Holland, this picture was up, and he turned around and Jules said to him, "So what's the significance of dogs?" He said, "Well, I like to call this one Hell and this one Redemption." He made up this whole story about it. So it was great how the pictures, they kind of...
Yeah.
And then I did another went to his house a couple of years later and photographed him before he went. But he was great. I mean, he was enormous. He was a big man. And I mean, he always saw me as a little sort of fly in an ointment, you know, getting in the way. But we got along. And I remember when we were at his house, he turned up and he said, we went to some old barns. He said, "Oh, you'll like this. It's all broken down barns." And opened up the one of the barns that was there. And inside was just all his old guitar cases. And you and I did a book together on Johnny Cash, and I remember when they said, "Oh, let's do a book," and I thought, I haven't got enough. And I knew there was this roll of film somewhere, so I went through everything and found 36 pictures of bits of bobs of Johnny Cash paraphernalia.
It was his tractor with
That's it, yeah, with Johnny
Farms
Cash Farms written on it.
Yeah.
And then all that burnt down. And, so it's no longer there.
Didn't he sell it to one of the Bee Gees?
He sold it to a Bee Gee, and it did, unfortunately. Burn down. It wasn't their fault, it was somebody doing the roofing apparently.
But no, that was a great set of pictures in the story. And hadn't you driven all that way out thinking you've got a full day to do all these different setups?
Yeah.
And
I mean, he was in his sort of mid-60s, I think, then. And so he was a bit, not sure what he was doing. And when we drove him all the way out there, and we sort of did these pictures, and with him, literally on the road and that sort of thing. And after 2 hours, he said, "Well, it's been great, guys. See you later." I thought, I haven't flown all the way to Australia for 2 hours. So the next day, we sort of cajoled him out and did a picture of him throwing the guitar case in the air and things like that. And but it was just sort of doing little bits at a time, and it was all shot in black and white, all shot on film. And then we processed it out there, so I could then show him, and we could get a selection of which ones he wanted. And he was really good. He was really sort of gracious about it, because there again, the album had been recorded and they wanted it out quickly and things.
And you made the deadline.
And we made the deadline.
And got the call back.
Yeah, and got the call back. Yeah.
I think we'll move on to the next picture here now. Prince. So you did a lot of work for Q Magazine.
I did.
When Q Magazine was a thing.
Yep.
Wonderful magazine. And also at this time, so you did how many, 30 covers, something like that?
Yeah, it was interesting, because I mean, my thing was very much about shooting outside and locations and that sort of thing. And also I was always interested in, like the Johnny Cash and the Duran, the bigger picture. So suddenly having to consider how to do a front cover, I still went out and approached it as though I was going to do a normal picture, but just went a bit closer in to get the the impact for the cover, and it was enormous fun. I mean, I ended up doing quite a bit of work with you guys and with them, and it was just a real treat. And you never knew. There was this, be a call on Friday. Can you be in New York on Monday? Courtney Love's ready to go on the roof, and you got a photograph her. And that didn't work, but it did work.
But with Prince now, like how much time were you? He was famously kind of restrictive.
He was wonderful. And we turned up there on a Sunday. On the Monday, we were meant to be shooting, and his people said at that time he was no longer Prince. He was the man formerly known as. So, and I said, "Well, what do you call him?" To this guy who was broad as he was long, built like a brick. And he said, it was his mind, and he said, "No," he said, "I call him Sir." And I said, "Well, I don't think I'm going to call him Sir." But anyway, so we were due to do it. Monday didn't happen, Tuesday didn't happen. And then on Wednesday night, we got a phone call saying, he's playing in a bar above down in Monte Carlo, because this was all shot in Monte Carlo, and only because he was there to get the World Award,
Music Award,
yeah. And so when we were there, there was this. They said, "You can go to the gig, but you can't take pictures." And I ended up putting a camera in my sock. Went inside and started taking
Camera
pictures
in your sock.
in my sock, literally, because before phones.
Did you do that often?
Yeah, always had a camera in my sock. And I took the pictures. And I took 2 or 3 of these pictures, and it was basically the society, the Monte Carlo society, all there in their floral dresses, with Prince, who started at 2, played for 2 hours solidly, not a bead of sweat on him. He was absolutely amazing. And anyway, I took a picture when the flash went off, which I thought I turned it off. And of course, as soon as they saw it, they came running up. And I was with Adrian Devoy, the reporter who was there, and I said, "Oh, it was him." So they whisked him out, and I put the camera back in my sock. So we managed to hold on to the film. So he got thrown out the plane for supposedly taking a picture. And then anyway, then they said, "You can do the picture now." And this was 4 o'clock in the morning. I said, "You might do." I said,
so the portrait, the colour portraits.
Yeah. So the colour portraits we did the following day, in the evening, on top of the Hotel de Paris. He was meant to be there at 5. He turned up at 6. He was meant to be doing some, global something rather at 6. And of course, I thought it's not going to happen anyway. Up he turned. I walked in. I had my lights all set up already. And as he walked in, the wind blew, and my light went boom, smashed. I thought, I've just got to wing it. I can't stop now and start putting another light up. And started shooting 1 roll of film, of which there were 12 pictures on that roll. And when we were shooting, as I was shooting it, and I said something like, "Oh, you're really taking the piss," in a jovial way. And the light came back and he said, "You just got your photograph." I said, "Absolutely." And that was it. And then, so 3-minute photo session. 5-day wait, and came back with this 1 roll of film thing. Do I put it through an X-ray machine? Don't I put it through? And then gave for Q, and they used 8 pages. So 8 pictures got used out of the 12, so not bad.
No. Have you ever lost any film at an airport X-ray machine?
No. I've had once when somebody in America, and I had a roll of film, and I said, "Look, there's nothing on it." And the guy said, "What do you mean?" He picked it up and went, "Shh, oh no, there isn't anything on it." And of course exposed it all. But that's the only time I've ever had an event like that.
Next picture, another artist formerly known as Prince.
This is another artist formerly known as Prince, and he no, this was just, I put that in as a spoof for the Prince shot, but that was quite weird because we ended up shooting up in Dumfries House, and it was in a magnificent sort of house that had all been done up. It was all Chippendale, and this was the dining room, and they'd laid it all to photograph, and it was a session with him. And when we were there, I was setting up early in the morning, and his valet came down and said, "Can you keep it down a bit?" He said, "He's asleep upstairs." And I was like putting lights up and this sort of thing. Anyway, he came down, and he was I mean, he talks to everybody, so he's really charming. So, and he's at half an hour, and like 10 minutes, he's still saying, "Oh, hello, what do you do?" And I thought, oh, there you go. But anyway, got him in, and he was really easy. He kept saying, because I had a wide-angle lens, and it was quite wide, and so therefore I was looking, or the camera was looking there, and he was there. He said, "Are you taking a picture of my ear?" I said, "No, of course not, sir." And I wanted all the sort of, his ancestors in the background and stuff. Again, it was about the picture, and he became an element within it.
So did you have much say in the setup, or did they tell you what you can and can't do?
They said, "That's the room, and get on with it." And in we went and took it. And actually, I think everybody at the, I can't remember, it was one of the palaces or something, they had to check it out, and they seemed quite happy, and we got I think quite a choice of 2 or 3 that they wanted to use. So
now, do you see something? Is that quite challenging? Where, like, maybe with a pop star or an actor or someone else, you feel you can sort of manipulate them or cajole them into doing what you want with?
I think I probably could have done. I mean, he was in a way with everybody. I think it's about how you approach them and things like that. And I mean, I've always wanted to be as professional as possible, and not sort of saying any chance for backstage bars, none of that stuff. I've never done that, and I think that's, in a way, you kind of get a bit of respect from well, you have a mutual thing. They want you because they like the way you take a picture, and I want to do them because I really like to take a photograph of them. So that's how then the basic thing, how it's all worked. And I mean, with Charles, he was with the King, sorry, he was just so affable, and but it was, everything was done to a time, and literally as soon as we finished, helicopter came down and off he went. It was that.
So off you went.
Yeah, off I went. Yeah. So that was it.
Had you shot any other royalty?
No, don't think I have. No.
What's been your most difficult shoot, person-wise? Not, you don't have to name names. Well, you do have to name
names. I do.
Names, because I've just asked the question. I've heard that a few times.
You've heard that one. She was. Yeah, I mean, we should put a picture in, but she basically, she was, it was due to be done in New York. It was due to be done for, you know, the queue and everything, and everything was set up. And we were at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. She was meant to be there. Makeup artist rang up and said, "Look, I don't know what she's on, but I can't bring her down. What should I do?" I said, "Oh, just do the makeup while she's asleep." Wasn't a good idea. So she woke up not quite so happy than when she was. And by the time then she said she's not having a shoot down on any effing rooftop, and could we find a studio? And eventually 2 o'clock in the morning there was a studio free below the outside studio, so got her in there and did it. But she was I mean, she'd ordered sushi from everywhere and this from everywhere, and everybody was there, and she was obviously in a little bit of a you know,
Tired.
a little tired, yeah. But anyway, we got it. We got the shot done. But that was one of those things. I thought, this isn't going to happen. This isn't going to happen. But you just got to keep sort of gently, you know, suggesting things to sort of, you know, tease them out really, and it kind of worked.
We had a similar encounter again for Q, but years later. I think it was 5 days and a half late. So it was booked specifically for the morning, makeup for the morning. Got to be in the morning because she's got to go somewhere in the afternoon. Turned up in the afternoon of the 6th day,
Right.
but was great.
Yeah.
Like really,
Yeah.
everything we asked. Then she said, "You don't need to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing." I said,
Yeah.
"Not telling you what to do. Just
Yeah.
we have an idea. We're trying to."
Yeah.
And then she was fine.
Yeah.
So the pictures were great, like
Yeah.
your rooftop picture.
That's it. All you need to do is, and I mean, again, you know, back in the day we shot Polaroid. So you shot a Polaroid and you could show them a Polaroid. Now I always used to cook the skies and make it look a bit dramatic. So you show them that and go, "It's a great day, but you've made it look like this," you know. So it was those sorts of things that helped you along. Once you knew, and like now, even shooting digitally, I always get them to show them what I'm doing. Once I've kind of got them feel like, "Oh, this, what do you think of this?" And then I watch their reaction as they're looking at the thing, and you can see whether they like them. And I know if they like them, then you've got them for the day, you know.
Now, am I right in thinking that you were one of the first photographers to go fully digital, to make that transition, whereas some were still shooting a film, going sort of small scale digital, but you got rid of everything, got computers, digital cameras, and just went for it?
Yeah. I remember sitting with Sophie, my wife, and we were sitting at the kitchen table, and and in order to do it, I had to buy a Hasselblad, which had the backs and everything on, and it was 20 grand. I said, "I could buy a car for that." You know, to me, that was much more important. And she said, and I sort of said, "But I think if you're going to do it, you've got to be, you know, ahead of the game." And of course, at those days, it was pretty crude, but I did start it off, and then from there, Canon got involved with me because I was doing the digital thing, and we ended up doing a whole series of lectures around Europe with Apple, because Apple had Aperture going, so it actually all worked out quite well, and a lot of it was to do with the sort of shots that I was shooting, because a few of them were reasonably well known. So to an audience, they were saying, "Oh yeah, I've got that cover. Oh, I know that picture." You know, so it kind of opened up a whole. It made them A, relate to your pictures, and B, me saying. Then I was doing demonstrations on stage, doing flash and blur, throwing cameras around, all sorts of things, just to sort of show what one could do and how versatile it was. And for me, what I loved about it, it was. You got a whole new palette. You know, you had a whole new series of things that you could work with, and that's what got me going about it.
So did you miss the film days, or?
Yeah, and I still do, because I used to shoot panoramics or film, and I still do. I mean, it's just so expensive now to do it and so complicated, but you do still get a different look with film, definitely. So yeah, I miss the still.
And so do you so we've got this shot here of Robbie. So do you approach things differently when you're shooting digitally? If you were shooting that film?
No, I don't think so. I think the same sort of thing, really. I mean, basically, it's just, for me, it is all about the image. I mean, this one, behind those pillars, big white pillars, these ones here, a bunch of flashlights, you know, studio flashlights. And I said to him, "Give us your best Pete Townsend." He leapt in the air. The lights go off, backlit him, lit all the things in the foreground, and everybody, you know, it gave an energy to the picture. And a lot of people said, "Oh, well, you could have done that all in Photoshop." And I said, "No, you couldn't, because you never get the light right on all these people in the foreground." There's in the background, there's a guy from Japan who was the Canon rep. He was the only one looking at the camera. Everybody else was looking at Robbie, so that was good. But that was that was for his life through a lens.
And with this now, like so you're working with an art director and various people with concepts, and then you have to realise that in
Absolutely.
the most...
I mean, with this one, this was, and I mean, yeah, it was. The album was called Life Through a Lens. I thought it was a bit literal, but in a way, that's what they wanted. And whereas I think, to me, the one of him jumping was more what Robbie was about. It was more of his energy and his sort of enthusiasm. But with this one, I mean, the light on here on the side of his head is actually this light here, which is my flash. So I positioned the flash so it would give a nice sort of shape and things. But it's great. I mean, I love more chaos, more fun it is to work in.
That's a lot of people to manage.
Yeah, it was. It was, yeah, and egos.
Yeah. And how? I mean, I hate to be sounding like things were better or just different, but do you find now that for something like that, you'd be given as much time and access and creative involvement? Everything seems to be...
Yeah, everything's
Can you do it quick?
Yeah, everything. The trouble is with digital is that everybody knows it's there then, and then everybody goes to post production and all that sort of thing. But yes, it's great, it's quick, it's really rapid. But for me, all these things, you end up coming up with an idea, and even in a session, at work and things, if you're coming up with an idea and you keep changing and moving and things, and everybody wants things like that, and I'm just saying, well, hold on, this is looking quite nice now, let's try and work that. And I think sometimes that's with film, it slowed you right down. If you were shooting, like with the Mannix, I shot with a 10 by 8 plate camera, which was this blooming great film. The camera was upside down, the scene was upside down, but the quality was stunning, and it's that sort of, and that slowed you down because you had to put a sheet of film in, take it out, and then put another thing back in. Whereas now you go in and just hear it's that motor drive's like on super slow compared to what they are today. Yeah. And people just shoot like a Gatling gun and then pick up. They're going to have a few, but where's the concept? Where's the idea? Where's the feeling? Where's the that's my feeling is that photography is about that feel. Yeah,
I mean, personally, I like when when I used to work on projects and I went to see this photographer called Chris Morfitt, and he was friends with Pete Townsend. So he had all his Who pictures from the 60s, from 65 onwards. And he'd photographed, there was a double bill, Hendrix and the Who at the Savile Theatre. And I was working on a Who or Hendrix project, maybe both. So I went to see him, I wanted to see all his pictures, and he came out with one contact sheet. Half the roll was Hendrix, half was the Who.
Fantastic.
I said, where's the rest? He went,
that's it.
That was it. Yeah. One roll of film. Yeah. It was expensive.
Yeah.
Got pictures of Hendrix, got pictures of the Who.
Yeah.
What more do you want? I felt like such an idiot. That's all. You got what you needed.
Yeah. No, I think that the trouble is that everybody, I think that they sort of overthink things a lot, and I mean, and as you know, record companies and things like that, and sometimes you just think, whoa, just let's get that down to what the idea is, what the musician's about, what they're about, what their music's like. It could be a line from a lyric, it could be something like that that sends you off. And I say, oh right, we'll do something with blowing things in the wind or something like that. Everything comes from a hint here and then, or even from the music. Like with the Duran stuff, it was that electronic thing. Well, then I thought, great, I can use my blur. It made sense in that situation.
Yeah, and. This is a bit more formal now.
Yeah, Annie Lennox. I think she's. This is one of my favourite pictures, and she's one of my favourite people I photographed because she's like a chameleon. She would literally, whatever was with the situation, she'd just go into the look. And she's wearing this sequin dress. She looked amazing. It was on. They were doing a video, and she'd just done a take and sat down. And I was going to take a picture of her, and I just went, Annie. She just looked up, and that was it. Boom. So it wasn't posed or anything like that. She was just taking a break between. But it kind of caught to me what she's about. I mean, she's beautiful in every way. She's a lovely person. She's got a lovely look, and I mean her music, her voice is unbelievable. I remember going into Wembley or something like that, and she suddenly starts singing. Whoa! It was like an Adele moment. You're like, where did that come from? It's absolutely stunning. So I think I've always had huge admiration for her, and it just I like the pictures.
I mean, what I like about this is, even though it's a kind of almost off the cuff, unguarded moment, it looks like, a Hollywood studio setup with a plan.
Yeah. No, it's a court moment. Yeah.
So do you have a preference for like super controlled, planned, or do you like?
No,
that?
I like to get a strong idea. I mean, quite often I work in things and think, no, this isn't working. I mean, when you're shooting all the time, this isn't working. You've got to keep up and try and find something else. But I like to go in with a concept. Usually throw it straight out the window.
Yeah.
You know, but at least you've gone in there thinking about it, what you're trying to do, how you're going to do it, and I mean, then you're reacting to what's happening in front of you and the light and the this, and it's like you go in with your antennae up. You're just completely on high alert, really, just watching every element. And a lot of the times, especially with cue covers, it was 15 minutes. That was your lot. Yeah. And so it was just, I mean, like REM, for instance, used to do a lot with them. And when they came back, they said, oh yeah, we don't mind having Andy because he's quick and we get a nice picture. So it worked really well, you know. So I like that kind of vibe. And then,
so with Morrissey here,
yep,
in Griffith Park,
yeah.
Obviously, this is a reference to James Dean. Did that come from him, or was that?
Yeah, I think there was a talk that he liked that kind of vibe and that kind of feel, and we hadn't planned to do that. I mean, the panoramic wasn't the plan, and eventually it was up. He was due to be there at lunchtime. Light was great, everything was lovely. Didn't turn up. 5, 6 o'clock he turned up, and he'd had a row with somebody, or I don't know what it was. Anyway, he turned up, and I thought, it's now gone cloudy, we've kind of lost it. Out came the flash gun, so that's what's given that little bit of pool of light on him, where it looks like a sort of an evening light, whereas actually it was as flat as a pancake. And to me, well, I love the sort of telescope sign going one way, he's looking the other way, and even on top of this green bit here, somebody had scratched Soul, S-O-U-L, and when he saw that, he said, "Oh, you picked the right place." I hadn't even seen it, but he'd seen it. But he was great actually. And he looked really good, and we got a good cover out of him, and got and it worked very nicely with him. And I mean, he had such a sort of strong personality. I remember going up and doing a shoot with him for Words, and I was at his house, and he then gave us a lift up in his car. He had a Jaguar convertible, and as we were going up the hills, up Laurel Canyon and stuff, and there was this rosary on his wing mirror, on his mirror in the centre. And I said, "Oh, so you're quite religious then?" And he said, "Why, aren't you?" And I said, "No, not really." He said, "It's time you took out some insurance." And I thought that was a lovely quote. But it was great. I mean, he was what he was, and he is what he is. But he was so strong with his look and everything, and he was always enjoyable to work with.
And a lot of your work, a lot of your pictures are quite timeless, which is quite an achievement given the period, because so many photographers' work from that period looks from that period. Yeah. Is that anything you'd given any thought to? Or
yes, I think in a way. I mean, I kind of like the fact that they're a bit lasting, and I mean, I never got involved in cross processing, which was very much one of the rages then. That gave it that look, and I tried those sorts of things. For me, it was. I mean, I've come from a world where photography and photographers is all about the pureness of the idea and the pureness of how we were doing it, and so that was always my my thing. So when I'm looking for pictures, I've been taking inspiration from all sorts of different photographers, not just music, but all sorts of, usually not music actually, it's mainly other people, whether it's documentary, it's Lee Friedlander, Ralph Gibson, whatever it might be. And so there was always been that sort of thing, and I've always loved the surreal as well, so trying to sort of introduce the surreal into the work's always been a theme. Which
brings us on to Storm Thorgerson and Pink Floyd.
Yeah, this was wonderful. This was Storm at his when we went, we did this in Spain, only because it was in October, we had to shoot it and they wanted sunshine and stuff. That was his call. So we went off to Spain, and as we flew in, it was at the time...
He just wanted to go to Spain.
He wanted to go to Spain. And we flew in, and we went through customs, and we had all these light bulbs in the box, and of course you had to go through, take everything customs, and they said, no, in Spain these light bulbs are no good. We have a screw fitting, these not bare everything. So we were trying to explain it's for a Pink Floyd album cover. So that was all. The album was called Delicate Sound of Thunder, and his answer to it was Delicate Sound is birds, which are around the guy's head, and thunder and lightning light bulbs. So that was his logistical way, but I mean he always sort of I mean, he was great. He had such a vivid imagination. I mean, actually, this was a Salvador Dali jacket, which had glasses on it. That's where the inspiration for that came from. And then the birds are Magritte, so it's that same kind of thing. So he had that sort of richness of understanding of surrealism and also tightening it up with sort of modern day things.
Yeah, Storm would always sort of be slightly dismissive of his own work by saying he only had 3 or 4 ideas.
Yeah.
They're all the same, but how he executed it was always different.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes it's very literal, like thunder or lightning.
Yeah.
And a play on words to do with the. And I asked him once, about some of the album covers he'd worked on, and he'd say, "Oh, we'd go and see the band, and we'd listen to the lyrics, and we'd come up with a concept." Or we'd just present them with something that had been rejected by someone else. And but they're always like amazing.
Yeah. Did you see the one he did about? I think it was for Led Zeppelin or something. And he came in, or it might have been for Jimmy Page, one of them. And the concept was a tennis racket. And they said, with nice shadow stuff. And I said, well, why are you using that? He said, because your music sounds like a racket.
He did say that.
Yeah. But I think it's his. I mean, I love characters like that. McLaren was like that. He was like that. There's various other people I work with who've got this wonderful sort of slightly abstract look at the world and playfulness and things. And I mean, with Storm, and he wanted it just flat landscape and everything. And I said, no, let's try it like this. We shot that 18 times.
Wow.
that shoot. So we kept doing it differently. And I'd say it would be nicer in the evening. No, I want bright sky. He knew exactly what he wanted. And then so it was my idea to put the lake in and have the sort of a bit of landscape shape going through it, just to sort of change it all. But he's great. And
was all this all in camera?
Yeah.
Because that was another thing when people would say Photoshop. They look at a Pink Floyd or a Zeppelin picture from 73 and say Photoshop, which didn't exist.
It didn't exist. So this was there was a bit of work done, I think, on the light bulbs and even on some of the birds. But because behind there's a bunch of guys from a company called Animal Actors, and I go 1, 2, 3, and they threw them in the air and they came to my question. So it was all done nicely. But for me to create that in a camera and get that picture and out it comes and there it is just thrilling. That's what I've always strived for, and where I find, with the digital side of things, and a lot of the time it just becomes decorative, if people aren't, if there isn't a sort of sense of purpose to it.
Oh, fantastic. And what have we got next?
Cranberries.
This is quite epic. And the panoramic again.
Yeah, panoramic again. I did all their album covers. So I did all 12 or 13 of their album covers. And anyway, on the first shoot we did, it was at the end of another shoot, and they brought this couch in and sat them down, and it's a black and white picture, and that's their first album cover. And it was literally at the end of a session, can we just do a quick shoot with this band? And so we did that, and it was on Island Records. And so then this couch lived with them. So every blooming cover, out would come this couch, and it would be taken on. And anyway, this was done in Dorking Island, down in Dublin, and put it out. We put the couch out there and had everybody waiting. And as we were there, ready for it, out came the rainbow, and that was it. And it was there for a split second, and then we lost the record company lost all the pictures. But eventually, about 4 years ago, we found this one again, which is the one with the thing. So that's been sort of like a lot of problems that I'm sure you are aware of. When you try, so where are all these pictures? Oh yeah, they're in a safe somewhere. Nobody knows. So they'd lost them anyway. We got that one back, which was really nice. But I did, all of that. And so the couch then followed through in all of their albums, and even we did a shoot in Mexico. And then eventually, I think it was at Coachella or something, and somebody sat light to it around a fire one night, so it never lasted after that. But it became a sort of a theme of theirs. But she was fantastic. I mean, Dolores, I think, is and the band, they were always really nice. And I mean, what was great was that Dolores sort of said, well, I said, well, thanks, it's nice to come back and do your 12th album or something. And she said, oh, the boys wouldn't want anybody else. So it was really sweet. There was literally we just meet up, we do the sessions, whether it was in America or Ireland or wherever, and Dublin and stuff. And so it was just great fun.
Nice. I think, talking of losing pictures, I think it was after we did the Johnny Cash book. I think I had the negs in a drawer in the Q office.
Right.
And we were moving. This was quite some time after we were moving offices, and we had to clear the drawers under our desk, and I emptied it out, and something was jammed, and I put them on the top of the bottom drawer,
Right.
which was full, and when I'd closed it, they'd gone behind.
Right, right.
And everything was being dumped. And I called you up and said, are you missing any negs? And you said, probably. I said, Johnny Cash. And you went, I don't think so. I think I had them all.
Right, right, right.
Safekeeping.
Yeah, I've got them back. Haven't
You
I?
got them back.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no, you got them back then.
Yeah.
But I was horrified. I was like,
Yeah.
you know.
No, but that's the thing. And I mean, like, again, with that Q stuff, I remember getting a call from Island Records, and there was some lad rang me up and said, oh, I've got these pictures of Madonna here. And I said, oh, I said, and he was a demolition guy. They were taking them and they were breaking it all down. And I said, oh, that's great. I said, any chance to come back? He said, yeah, I'm going to put them on eBay. And I said, oh, you know, and they were all original Madonna ones. And anyway, I was chattering. I said, look, I'm a photographer now. Who do you like? He said, oh, I love UB40. I said, oh, I've done them. Should I do you a nice big print in exchange for those? And he said, yes, I did. You know?
Nice.
And that's got me out of problems with that.
So many photographers lost their work,
Yeah.
either accidentally or... I remember seeing a guy called Bill Francis, and he worked for Melody Maker in the 50s, jazz photographer, and then worked for Fab 208 magazine,
Right.
did colour shots. He did about 100 sessions with the Beatles, and what they would do is they'd print the bottom half of the picture as a poster one week, and the top half the second week. So you had to keep buying it. It was very clever. So he shot colour for years, and we went to see him about doing an exhibition at the National Portrait Gallery, and he had all these tear sheets and copies of the magazines. So we made piles of them with Terence Pepper. We said, oh, we'd like to have all of these, and he said, so would I, dear. Burnt the lot, and we're like, we've been there 4 hours.
Really?
What do you mean burnt? I said, no, someone nicked them. You were just saying that. He said, no, when they moved offices in 71, they tipped all the colour into the yard, set fire to it because they didn't want to move it.
No.
And no one wanted old pictures.
You see, even now there are people who have got hold of pictures, old 35 mils, and they're blowing them up of bands and stuff like that with the, you know, the crayon mark around the outside and all that stuff, and then selling them off as posters.
Yeah, it's art.
You know, it's art. Yeah, it's art. But I think the problem is I mean, with me, I've always, you know, I've seen pictures done all over the shop and get, you know, you just think, as long as I've seen it good once, looking good, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And then you see it upside down. And the amount of times I've seen Madonna, for instance, with the background cut out, I thought, oh, that's, you know, so that's how all those sort of
And
things
obviously the Johnny Cash one is just bootlegged everywhere.
It is bootlegged everywhere, and I mean, there's a museum now down in Nashville, which is a Cash museum, and quite a few of our pictures are in that. And like they won the best music museum in America last year. So suddenly they're out and said, "Hi, can we have one of your pictures?" I said, yeah, sure. We're going to put it on a billboard. Oh, really? You know, and not quite the money one would expect, but anyway. But as you drive into Nashville now, there's 3 Johnny Cashes of mine on billboards. So I'm happy to have that.
And you're on a stamp as well.
And I'm on a stamp, yeah. So that will
Not many people can say that.
No, that's true. Yeah, that was good.
Another panoramic here.
No, this is
not quite panoramic.
This was the 10x8 camera. So this was shot with a 10x8 plate camera.
Manic Street Preachers.
Manic Street Preachers, and the album was called "This Is My Truth, Tell Me Yours," and with Mark Farrow, brilliant designer. And we were trying.
Well, you needed all that space to fit that title.
Yeah, to fit his typing. Yeah, and we wanted to. We were talking about ideas, and I was talking about these American photographers that I really liked, and who did big landscapes and stuff like that. And I was showing them all these sort of portraits in Nebraska and things, and they said, "Yeah, great, love it." And so yeah, we'd love to. That's the kind of vibe we want. We shoot on 10.8 cameras, so it's got that real lovely quality to it. And they said, "Fine, but we hate flying. Can we do it in Wales?" And I thought, well, Wales doesn't quite look like Nebraska, but that is Harlech Beach in Wales. And then we did some shots inside up Snowdonia and stuff, and there were sheep everywhere. Everywhere you look, there were sheep. But that came the album. And again, what I love working with Mark Farrow was, he's not having the faces all up front. He's very much about giving them space, and there's just the three guys there. And like we did a thing with ABC and stuff, and with the big buildings, and Martin Fry's teeny weeny on the buildings, but it gave it a lovely sort of.
So, like you're saying, the picture is more important than any one element, including the artist.
Not including that. No, but the artist fitting into that element and like with this, I mean, I think it looks the stances were good. I think it just had a nice sort of vibe to it. And we did 2 or 3 of those one night, and then we did some stuff with. But projects like that are great, and even if you turn around to a band now and say, right, we want to do this, we want to shoot it like that, they wouldn't understand necessarily what you're doing. But you need that light, you need that time of day, you need all those elements to sort of come together for it to work. Madonna. So
was this shot for Q?
Q, yeah. And this was, I guess it was in Paris, Hotel de Paris, and it was, and I turned it on. I wasn't allowed an assistant, I had to go on my own, and turned up there, and she was doing a photo call. So we had an hour slot or something in a suite, and anyway, I got it all set up and was ready for it. In she came with 40 people. I thought, this is in a hotel room. Gaultier, all these sort of wonderful people were there. And her assistant came down and said, oh, the last session she did with Paolo Roversi, who's a fantastic Italian photographer. I said, oh, that's great. And she rejected everything. I said, oh, thank you. It's just the encouragement I need.
No pressure.
No pressure. So I started to shoot, and it was, it was just trying to get her to concentrate. I found was quite difficult because there was too many people, too many distractions, and just trying to connect. But the other shot that we did with the one with the was like a rebel without the course with the trombone and stuff. I think sort of captured her quite. This sort of gave it. She just had her belly button pierced. She said, oh, can you see my belly? Yes, yeah, I can see your belly button. But it was just trying. I just couldn't quite get. It worked, and it worked okay, but I just couldn't feel as though. The outside there was loads of fans. It was a bit like a Taylor Swift. Literally she opened the blinds and the whole of the square and sort of erupted in Madonna, Madonna, and she said, "Oh, I need my hit." Shuts the door and turns around and said, "Next picture, please." And I think, okay, and I just wanted to sort of take her down, cafe au lait in the local coffee bar, come back up and start again because I just trying to. That was one where you're playing with it, and then I had to then process everything in Paris that night, and then go and see her the following morning. I had to go and buy a light box with a battery so she could look at all the transparencies. Took them in there, and I edited it down to about 30, and she chose 23.
Amazing.
So we did all right.
Yeah, I mean, also I think that's just on the cusp of big changes with artists of that magnitude, where they would use their own photographer, they would own it, they would supply 4 or 5 pictures to every magazine. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, my wife and children will be taken away if I ever use those irregularly. And I had this sort of enormous scroll of what you can and can't do. But, and so even when I did a book and I put it in the book, I thought, shall I do it? And I thought, well, I'll go and just do it. No, I'll probably get feedback now.
Well, they were approved.
They were approved, absolutely. Yeah.
No harm done.
No.
And so with that, again, and I talk about this with a lot of photographers, when we look at the finished picture and it looks glamorous, it looks like you had all the time in the world and they're your best friend and they're cooperating and there's no pressure. But the reality is nearly always very different, even if you're worrying about the light or what time they're going to turn up. And having all those people in the room is such a distraction.
I mean, it's when the production. I've never had an agent. I've always been a sort of solo person, used freelance assistants. I've never had a big team of people. So I've never had this machine that goes with me, and I quite enjoyed that sort of agility, really. But I think again, when you're in that situation and all those things are happening, my feeling is, where's the picture? Where's the picture? Where's my picture? And I'm looking at something. Oh, that's nice. And then suddenly the light comes through at the background. Oh, later. Now, and it's just trying to like put all the little bits together. And half the time you do it and you think that's it. And then you look at it when you get back and think, no, it wasn't that. It was a 2 before or 1 after or whatever. And I always think again, when you say about the classic side of things, I always look at pictures and think, not until 6 months later I can see, yeah, that one was all right, because at the time you think, oh, it's great, and then you look at it and think, not so sure.
And now we talked earlier that you're kind of digitizing the earlier work and just organizing your archive. Do you look at things differently when you see a picture from back then? Do you see? Yeah,
I mean, quite often you see. I kind of like the honesty of them all, because they were shot as they were, and you didn't have Photoshop and that sort of thing. Well, you had Photoshop a bit, but I never used it. I mean, when I did go digital, I had to hire somebody radio on Nintendo. I didn't know how to work a computer, and how do you connect all this in? How do you get these pictures from there on this stupid little card into there? I want to roll a film, I can see, So that whole transformation was kind of a bit beguiling in a way, just to sort of understand it. But I think the just trying to get the with the production side and all that sort of thing, you're in there and hopefully you've got somebody, an assistant who's batting for you, to sort things through, and you're just looking for the pictures, and sometimes it goes on and you're not getting them, and it's frustrating, and people say, that one's all right. It's not all right, I don't want all right, I want great, and that's what we're looking for.
I remember I was working with Barry Feinstein, who shot a lot of Dylan, and was kind of a bit annoyed that people always asked him about Dylan, because it was a short period of a long career. But I talked to him about doing a book, and he said, I haven't got enough great pictures.
Yeah.
And I said, can I have a look anyway? And he gave me 2 ring binders full of negs, like thousands of pictures. Yeah. And I was like, this is great. He went, no, it's interesting. And I only want to print great, not interesting.
Excellent.
And it was a bit of a battle, but we got there. I think we found a balance. But it's interesting because also over time things take on a different meaning. What someone in the background, or that might have been the last shoot or a particular moment in time. So
it's strange. I mean, as I say, starting to sort of work out. I mean, literally, there's just boxes and boxes in my garage. And like any shoot had a folder, and it said Q, whatever number it was, and in went all the negs, in went all the paraphernalia about that. And so going through it, I mean, like yesterday, I was asked for some Bon Jovi stuff and got them all out, and I sort of went through, God, these are great, quite like this one. And actually, it was quite nice now, because in a way, because I am sort of thinking, well, somebody's going to have to do this at some point, you need to do it. I remember the good ones, so hopefully get the good ones together, so you'll have, say, a dozen Bon Jovi ones that can then be used. At the moment there's one that's kicking around, and that's it. So it's not a matter of monetizing, it's just a matter of organizing it, because I work at some of the universities, and I said to one of the guys, I said, well, maybe I'll just give my archive to Nottingham Trent for the thing. He said, oh God, no, don't do that. He said, you've got to sort it out for your family in a way, because they hopefully might get, maybe get a bit of royalties or something, not royalties, but a lot of them I do own, so that kind of helps.
But I think the important thing is you unfortunately, is going to have to be you, are the only one who knows the full story. Not just the where and when, because that can be looked up, but the stories behind pictures and how they came about.
I think in a way, because like when we did our book with Johnny Cash, and I sort of thought the story side of it is so important, and I mean the anecdote side, obviously there's the ones we just talked about, but a lot of them have sort of quite intriguing little weird sidelines, or half the time you don't know who you're talking to, and then suddenly you go out and meet this person on a croft up in on the Outer Hebrides, and you're doing a photograph of him and thinking, well, how did this all happen? That's what's so lovely about photography, is you do get to go to the most extraordinary places.
And what excites you now photographically?
Photographically, it's quality. very much quality, very much a good idea. I mean, I'm still always looking at pictures, still loving, you know, there's a lot of the art photographers that I don't, you know, I'm not an art photographer, but there's a lot of those guys' work that I really, Philip Lorca de Corsa, Richard Misrak, Ralph Gibson, people like that, I just adore their look, their eye, the way they do it. So that's what keeps me going, is that eye. And I've got a project coming up next year, which is a arts project, and there's basically on about 20 beaches, different artists from around the world are creating things at 1 month, all on these different beaches. And so out will come the panoramic. We've got one with 100 dancers on it, and another one with somebody that's going to set light to some big sculpture and get washed away by the sea. So that sounds exciting. You know, I love the big picture, you know, the drama, I suppose, in a way. That's something that...
And the unpredictability.
Oh, completely. Yeah. I mean, the more, you know, I think that's been the key to my life, really, is, you know, when something's gone wrong, and at the time when you mess something up or a light's gone out, you think, oh no, what's happened? Then you look at it and think, oh, it looks rather good, actually, you know. And then it makes you think about it in a different way. But no, I mean, it's a bug, and it's a drug, you know. It just, and taking pictures has always been, you know, that's been my hit.
And so do you take pictures for fun, or is it only work?
Yeah, no, for fun. I mean, a lot of it, I mean, iPhones are great now because they are so good, and you can, and I mean, that becomes my sort of visual diary, I suppose, where it's not just, you know, all sorts of bits and bobs. But no, definitely. And I mean, quite often, you know, like the other day I took a couple of pictures of getting into King's Cross where I work, and there was just somebody sitting on a bench. It was early in the morning, walking to work, and there was that person there, and I must have spent about 2 or 3 minutes just moving around to get just the right picture, and it looked like a Jeff Wall painting, and because this guy was sitting there reading his phone, I think, and you couldn't see what he was reading, and it was just in a white coat on this big wooden panel, and it had a sort of surrealism to it, and then it was just an everyday thing. So those things I get a little buzz out of, you know.
And so you're not an iPhone snob, as some photographers are.
What, say no. Oh, I think they're great.
Yeah.
No, 100%. And I mean, I think it's, you know, I've always been impressed with them. I mean, yeah, you get a bit limited if you want to blow them up and stuff. But I mean, that's what's changed in photography. I mean, an iPhone can take a picture, you know, in your pocket and expose it, you know, whereas back in the day, you wouldn't have had the right film to do all that. So I think that sort of breadth, the problem is it's all become so available, and everything's, you know, you don't have to worry about exposure. We used to have to worry about a third or half a stop to get the exposure right. Now you've got the biggest latitude, and it's that openness that I think is causing the problem in a way of everything becoming a bit too scattergun, and everything needs to be just a bit tighter and a bit more of a strong idea and a meaning behind it all.
I think that's a perfect way to end it.
Good.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Andy.